The camera moves slowly through a moonlit canyon, lit only by torches carried by silent horsemen. These riders aren't warriors, but couriers, escorting pack animals burdened with bales of a light, precious material silk. This isn't fantasy. It's the Han Dynasty's version of a supply chain. Silk is often remembered as a luxury cloth worn by emperors, but to the Han, it was far more a strategic resource, a form of currency, and a geopolitical tool. Long before oil cartels existed, Han China built a system like a cartel, controlling silk production and trade to hold power. Imagine it as the world's first organization managing a vital resource. Except, instead of oil, it was silk from countless mulberry trees. How did something as delicate as silk become a hard currency? And what happened when the government claimed a monopoly on what everyone craved? In 200 BC, a new emperor united a vast and war-torn land. He commanded a huge army and bureaucracy, paying them in grain and copper coins. But both were problematic. Grain, spoil, coins were heavy, and enemies to the north wanted nothing so much as silk, something only the Han could produce. At first, the Han tried to keep peace by giving princesses and gifts to these nomads. But these deals failed like bad subscriptions, costly and unreliable. Emperor Wu soon saw his treasury bleeding as the nomads used Han silk to fund raids. Enter Sang Hongyang, a savvy advisor who saw the silk industry not as small home weaving, but as a national asset ripe for control. His solution was to let the enemy have silk, but only if they bought it from the state, at prices fixed by the government. Taking over an ancient craft run by countless families wasn't about seizing silkworms. It was about cutting out profits from private merchants. The state demanded all surplus silk at a set price, paying immediately, which ruined independent traders. The government then managed storage along the Silk Road, controlling supply and trade. A tired merchant crossing deserts had no choice but to accept the state's exchange rates. The Han held the reins of price, supply, and security, turning silk into a kind of global currency. Even more clever, the army was paid in silk, not coin. Soldiers on the frontier could trade it locally for what they needed. This allowed the government to print a form of money, fund the military, and drain wealth from foreign lands at once. By controlling every step from silkworm to customer, the Han didn't just dominate the economy, they shaped power on the world stage. They owned the whole supply line, much like if a modern government controlled all oil production, gas stations, and paid its military with fuel cards. But this fragile balance soon showed cracks. State factories produced low-quality silk, ruining the product's reputation. The merchant class shrank, pushing many into banditry. When a locust plague struck, stockpiles were full of worthless silk but empty of grain. After Emperor Wu's death, the state overspent, monopolies bred corruption, and black markets flourished. The bureaucracy served the cartel more than the people. The empire faced a question: should the state run businesses at all? In 81 BC, this question erupted at the Salt and Iron Conference. Reformers argued monopolies bred corruption and stifled growth. Defenders claimed they protected the empire from threats. The compromise kept some monopolies, but the damage lingered. Focusing the entire economy on silk left the Han vulnerable. When the dynasty fell, so did the Silk Road and its silk-backed currency. Today, this mirrors countries relying heavily on a single resource. Control can be profitable, but once threatened by decay or competition, collapse can come suddenly. The Han story is a lesson on power. Money is a weapon, and controlling supply is the trigger. They held the empire together by turning silk into its economic backbone, but failed when they neglected constant upkeep. For us now, controlling a critical resource still means power. But power without flexibility is a target. If this strategy surfaced today, it would look less like a government monopoly and more like a tech platform dominating an industry's infrastructure. So, is this ancient cartel blueprint economic genius or just dressed-up manipulation? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to see what happens when the state monopolizes something else, subscribe for more.